Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 260 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. I have an amazing guest for you today. Her name is Wendy Lloyd Curley, and we are talking about the power of strategic networking. Now, if you don't like networking, stick with me. I promise you there is so much gold in this conversation. Wendy is one of my favorite humans, and I can't wait to share this podcast episode with you. Thank you, of course, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know there are lots of choices out there, not only of podcasts, but things to be doing right now. So I really do appreciate you making my podcast one of them. But if you are enjoying the podcast, you know what's super cool? When I get to know you a little bit better. So I can do that by you connecting with me on socials, or even taking a screenshot of wherever you're listening to this and tagging me in social media, because that would be super cool. All the show notes for this particular podcast episode can be found on my website, which you can find at all the W's, socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/260. Now, a couple of things before we get to hear from the amazing Wendy Lloyd Curley. First up, did you listen to last week's episode? Last week, I was talking about where your profits might be leaking from your business. There was 4 specific parts of your business. I was kind of like, these could be leaky points for you as far as profitability goes. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that episode, go back and listen to episode 259 and take some action. Listen, make some adjustments in your business, make some adjustments in your marketing, and be more profitable, of course. Second thing, a big shout out to this week's podcast sponsor. If you are tired of wasting time with financial admin, simplify your business with Thriday. Thriday is a next gen accounting platform that automatically reconciles your expenses, calculates your tax, and chases up overdue invoices. You can basically control it all in one place. Imagine how much time you could save. And if you don't like financial admin, this could be just the solution you were looking for. Business finance doesn't have to, of course, consume you. And we're all about making things simpler here on the podcast. So check out Thriday. It could be the best thing you do today. Other than listening to this podcast and other than listening to myself and Wendy, of course, you can find Thriday at thriday.com.au. The link is in the show notes. Thriday, interestingly, is spelled Thriday, just in case you were wondering. And one more thing before I get to Wendy Lloyd Curley. I promise I will be super quick. So I'm creating a little black book on Black Friday at the moment. Black Friday is can be some of the most profitable times for e-commerce, but also us service-based business owners as well. And so this year I've decided, after many conversations over many years, to put everything I know about creating a really strategic plan around such a big holiday or such a big occasion such as Black Friday, and I'm putting it all into one guide. It's not finished yet, so I've opened the waiting list for it. So you can join the wait list for the little black book on Black Friday by going to bit.ly/BF waitlistgen. The link's in the show notes. Links are so hard to talk about on on a podcast, but the link is in the show notes, or if you go to my Instagram bio, you will see it there. Or you know what? You'll probably hear me talking about it a lot in the next couple of weeks, but it's a wait list at the moment. Heads up though, this guide won't be free. It will cost you something because it is worth paying for, I promise you. But I just wanted to give you that heads up, because sometimes people are like, oh, I'll sign up for that. Clearly it's going to be a bit of a lead magnet or something. It's like, no, not this one. This one is actually a revenue making black book for me, because it's taking so much work to put it together. But it will help you become more profitable around this time of the year. So can't wait to share that with you. Join the wait list. Okay, on to today's episode and my amazing guest, Wendy Lloyd Curley. I think I just like saying her name. I just can't say it's Wendy. No, it's Wendy Lloyd Curley. Like I said, she is one of my favorite humans, and we've actually met through She's the Boss, which is a fabulous community that we both belong to. If you're not part of it, come and join She's the Boss. I think you can find it. She's the Boss Group, I think, is the website. Otherwise, She's the Boss on social media. And of course, tell Jules that I sent you there as well. I always love my chats with Wendy, and she's going to guide us through some networking today, but not only network, strategic networking. So before we get into it, a little bit about Wendy. Wendy lives in Sydney. She actually plays in a band and she sings and plays guitar most weekends. So she is a woman of many talents. Professionally, Wendy is the founder of Strategic Networking, a consulting and training firm that helps uncomfortable networkers become comfortable. That is her jam. That is what she is a unicorn for doing. She's also the franchise owner and executive director for BNI Sydney, Sydney Northeast. Of course, if you're not sure who BNI is, that's one of the world's most successful networking businesses for generating business referrals. And Wendy thrived in a BNI as a member 10 years ago before buying her own franchise. She lives and breathes marketing and strategy, and that's probably one of the reasons why we love our chat so much. So, without any more interruptions, here's my chat with Wendy. Wendy Lloyd Curley, I am excited to have you on the podcast. I reckon this has been a long time coming, having this podcast chat with you. So, welcome to the podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much, Jen. And I have to say, every time that I'm on a video call with you, every single time, you sound exactly like Jen Donovan. And it's amazing. I just absolutely love it. I love your podcast, and I love the fact that I'm on it is a delight.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now, for my amazing listener who may have not come across Wendy Lloyd Curley before or would like to know a little bit more, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Oh, absolutely. So I am married to a man with a surname Curley, which is how I adopted that name, but I refused to become Wendy Curley. I kept the Lloyd because the Lloyd's important. So Wendy Lloyd Curley, no hyphens, just three names. I hail from originally the United States, and my parents, my brother, my family live in Arizona. And so a lot of people ask where I'm from. I usually answer Five Dock, which is where I live in New South Wales, just the inner west of Sydney. And that makes them laugh. And then they say, no, where are you really from? But so I've been in Australia now for permanently 23 years and on and off since 1988. So I consider myself more Australian than American, and the only thing really American about me left is my accent. I live here with my dog and my husband, and I have two businesses that I run. So one that I started in 2020 called Strategic Networking, and that is the one that I predominantly talk about with you and that I think about when I think of Jen. That is a consulting company where I help people and train people in strategic networking skills. And then I also own a region of BNI. BNI stands for Business Network International. And that is not networking, it's a network. So I own a portion of that network where I help my members to establish relationships with each other that really expands their opportunities to give referrals and to receive referrals. And so I had been a member of BNI for 10 years before I became an owner of the region. And I really, both companies really work well with each other. Besides that, I like to sing, so I'm in a band and I play the guitar, and I have great bandmates that I play with, and I love wine and the Sydney Swans, which is quite hard to like right now, and I also enjoy traveling. So that's me in a nutshell.
Beautiful. My husband played a bit of footy with John Longmire. So yes, he's a country boy. He's from where I am. So yes,
we happily call him Horse.
Oh, the horse from the Swans. Okay, I haven't heard that before. There you go. That's very funny. Yeah, so it was networking that I thought would be a great conversation for today's podcast. I feel that I know I am a someone who has learnt the power of networking. I am someone who's actually had to learn how to network. I'm not a natural. People might think I'm a bit of an extrovert, but I do have to push myself to be that person.
Yeah.
I would never say I'm an introvert. I don't really know introverts and extroverts. I just know that I get really nervous when I'm in a crowd full of people that I don't know. But I love that your business is strategic networking because to me, that means networking with purpose.
Yes.
So, can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, how you see networking as a powerful tool, business tool? I'd call it a marketing tool.
I completely consider it a part of the marketing elm. And I guess I should give you full disclosure. I believe marketing is everything. So in business, and that it needs to touch absolutely everything. And my background is in corporate marketing before I started running my own businesses. And I believe also in sort of a centrist marketing policy, where a company doesn't have a whole bunch of small marketing arms, but instead really works from a strategic perspective as one. So networking is something that people don't teach. You just are told to go and do it. You need
Mhm.
you need to go out and do some networking, and that's to expand your network. So two different things, a verb and a noun, right?
Mm.
So I guess what inspired me is that I knew that people would go out networking, but they would leave without any results.
Mhm.
They were consistently going to lunches or to after hours drinks or to seminars or panel discussions or conferences, but not really understanding or even thinking about what they were going to get out of them. And so I developed a way of thinking about this that said, you need to know what you're looking for, because as in Alice in Wonderland, right? If you don't know which way you're going, then any path will do. And we know what we want out of networking, but we often don't prepare for it. So strategic networking was really born from the idea of that, networking with purpose, knowing who you want to meet, and also separating networking from sales,
Mhm.
realizing that there's a distinct line and it's pretty distinct if
Okay.
you if you know how what to listen for when you can stop one activity and enter the other one. And it's through invitation, in my opinion. It's an
Okay.
invitation that someone who you've connected with invites you in, and they'll do that if you resonate with them, and that's part of the strategy.
Yeah. Okay. The line between networking and sales, you say it's quite distinct. In a lot of people's minds, I'd say it's probably not. They consider, you go to networking to make sales, and therefore everyone in the room is trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
That's kind of not been my experience. I guess it depends on what room you're in. And I would say if that is your experience, you're in the wrong room. I don't know. Is that too harsh?
No, I don't think it's too harsh at all. When you do go networking, that's true. Most people uh, only go to networking in order to get the end result, which is the sale.
Mhm.
And so you end up in a room of people who are telling you about what they have as if you need it, but
Mm.
they don't know that you need it.
Mhm.
They assume, oh, everybody needs this, but a lot of people already have it. You've
Mhm.
got to scratch the itch that needs scratching, right? Right. So if you're a mortgage broker and you enter the room, of course, I have a mortgage.
Yes.
And but do they know whether I've already done all of the work that I need in order to have the best rate and have they don't know that. They would need to do some inquisition and ask questions.
Mm.
I find that yeah, there's a often quoted kind of story that who in this room is here to hopefully sell something, and
Mhm.
everybody raises their hand. I hope I could sell something this today. And
Yeah.
now who came here to buy something? And nobody says anything. Nobody came to the networking event to buy. And so that's the networking disconnect, right?
Mm.
You've got a whole bunch of people hoping to sell something in case they find the right person, and nobody coming in to buy. And that doesn't really work very well.
No, that's a disaster waiting to happen, I would say. For me, like I said a little bit earlier, like networking is something I've had to push myself to do. I would often find myself in situations where I'm basically carrying the sandwiches around because that's my way into a conversation. Like, pick up the sandwich plate. Would you like something to eat? And then I can stand there and talk to the conversation to go and just enter a conversation. To this day, I don't like that idea. I'm getting better at it. But I guess that is one of the things, like, how, if you are entering a room that is a networking room, you don't really know anybody in that room. How do you start a conversations other than picking up the sandwich plate?
I love it. Okay. Well, there's a few hints and tips for you. First of all, approach the people who look approachable. You might as well do what looks good.
Yep.
So often that will be the people who are not staring at each other in the eyes. Like if you and I were talking and we're facing each other and we're staring each other in the eyes, we're kind of close and we're talking, you don't look approachable. You look like you're in a
Mm,
deep conversation about something important. So you want to look for the groups of people that look like they'd like to have someone join them.
mhm,
And and so they might be have a space for you so
mm,
that you could come in. You don't have to break in with the with the sandwich plate. You instead can go and serve it quite easily. And instead of serving sandwiches, you're serving your smile. So that's one. Look for the low-hanging fruit, the people who look approachable.
yes.
And don't look, this is important, don't immediately look for the people you know. You won't help but see them. But if you already know them, you'll have a tendency to just, the gravity pulls you over
Mhm,
to the people that you already know. And that's not good. That won't challenge you. So
mhm,
I challenge you to challenge yourself to not immediately go to the people that you know. Or if you
mhm,
do, to break away from them relatively quickly. And the way to do that is to simply say, hey, listen, let's go and meet some new people, and then just
mhm,
move and start to move away. So the first piece of advice: look for people who are
mhm,
comfortably offering you a space. Second piece of advice: don't worry about you, worry about them. So go up and ask them what brought them here, or have you ever been here before, or how long did you have to drive in order to get here? Or even if you're on a Zoom call, just asking them a simple question about what they do. And what you really want to do is you want to just have soft conversations. You don't want to go in for the jugular, so you don't need to worry too terribly much. I guess what I want to do is relieve you of worry, because
yes.
they're there for the same reason you're there. But if you can make it all about them, people love to talk all about themselves.
Everyone's favorite subject is
They,
themselves, don't they say?
They do. And if they're a good networker, like I consider myself a good networker, I'm going to put it right back to them because I want
Mm,
to find out about them.
mhm,
You'll be able to see who the good networkers are by how much they talk about themselves versus how much they ask about the other person.
yes.
So be a good networker and listen more than you speak. Ask
Mhm,
good questions and get their responses, and then try really hard not to think about what you're going to say next, but listen to what they say and then perhaps repeat it back and say, oh, that's interesting. So you're having a conversation, and it doesn't have to be about work right away.
mm. Yeah, I love that. Being a good listener is a really good trait to being a good networker. That is definitely something I have learned. And often I find you remember the people who listened. They're the ones you remember. You don't really remember, you remember the person who talked your ear off, but you mightn't remember what they do or who they were, what their name was. But you remember the bad conversation you were trying to escape really, really quickly.
That's right.
Um, yeah, yeah. So and this is probably not necessarily a good thing, but one of the things I do to help with my networking is I run. some networking events. So that means that everyone gets to know who I am because they have to email me, they have to buy tickets off me, and I get to be up the front, but I don't actually have to do the networking on the night. I get to be the timekeeper. But it's always really interesting to to run like literally a networking event where it's just like, right, you've got 3 minutes to, chat to the person. How many people don't get a go in that 3 minutes? So you've got 3 minutes to, introduce yourself, chat to each other, and then one person has taken up the whole 3 minutes. And, whilst I'm timekeeping, I'm observing that. And I think that's and that's where I've sort of thought you need to be a good listener to be a good networker, and not going for the business things straight away, I guess.
Yeah, in fact, when you're going for the business thing, I guess that'd be my third piece of advice. Wait until they ask what you do to tell them what you do. Instead, ask what they do and who are they looking for. That the strategy behind strategic networking is in knowing yourself so well and your business so well that you know exactly the kind of people that you'd like to meet. So once they start talking to you about your company, you don't sell to them, you explain to them who you sell to. It's a very, very different thing. You're not trying to assess. You don't even need to worry about whether they'll buy from you or not. You aren't assessing that yet. You're connecting with them. So you're teaching them, in a sense. You're almost training them. These are the kinds of people that I really need to meet right now. And they fall into 5 categories. And one of them is your target market. So they do want to know who you serve. But they also, in order to get a good hit rate in your networking, you don't only want to meet the people who are in your target market because they might not be there. So who else do you need to meet is the strategy behind strategic networking. You
So
want
as in, who do they know that you might need to know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, let's go with that mortgage broker that I said before. And you might ask them, and you're not selling to them, you're talking. So I'm, as a mortgage broker, I'm talking to you, and I might say, listen, who is your mortgage broker? And they either don't know, I just do it with CommBank, or that maybe they don't know, or perhaps they do know and they tell you. How did you meet them? Oh, they were introduced to me by a friend. So you're just connecting the dots. That's the name of my eventual podcast, is Connect the Dots. And in Connect the Dots, it's that's exactly what it's about. How did you meet them? So you're learning as a mortgage broker how your connection met their mortgage broker. Was it a referral? Was it a connection through a networking event? Was it a family member that told them about you? It's a way of learning. Really fantastic. So that's one area. Is competitors. It's really great to benchmark against competitors. More importantly, it's great to see if those competitors are truly competitors, because it's very rare that you find someone who does exactly what you do in exactly the same geography to exactly the same target market at exactly the same price.
I'd say it's almost impossible.
Right. So chances are there's collaboration opportunities where it's just off a little bit. And then maybe it's off a lot. Maybe I only do it in Perth and someone else does it in Sydney, but we have very, very similar models. Well, we could refer each other then. We could refer to each other when we really like to work locally, because we both believe in meeting our clients in person. Wow, we've got shared values about something. So there's tremendous amounts of things you can learn from your supposed competitors, and turning them into collaborators is a key of networking.
Yes. And a skill as well to be able to do that. Starts with listening. Imagine that. And asking quality questions.
Asking quality questions is what it's really all about too. Yeah.
So I guess taking maybe a darker path down the strategic network path, say you're at a networking event, you are with someone who is delighting in telling you all things about them and rarely drawing breath or asking a question. How do you stop a conversation? How do you exit yourself from that conversation? Do you have any tips or tricks? Because I think we've all been there.
100%. I do. The first one and the easiest one, and it might sound silly, but it's, hey, can I get a copy? Can I have a card? Do you have a card? I'd love to stay in touch. And you get their card and you say, thank you so much for talking to me. I'm going to go and I've got to meet a couple of other people while I'm here. I'm sure you do too. And then you move. So asking for their card sort of is a way of saying something might happen. And then all you really need to do is either nothing, which is probably what they expect, or you could write to them and say, thank you, it was nice to meet you. And you've already left the conversation at that point. But asking for a card is a really good way.
I
There's
like that.
all, yeah, that's good. Connecting on LinkedIn is another thing that kind of breaks. What you're trying to do is break the conversation.
Mm.
So you want
Mhm.
to move to the next thing. So you might say, hey, listen, do you use LinkedIn? And then you can say, before we stop talking, I'd like to connect. And then
Mhm.
you're already inferring that you're going to be moving to the next conversation. Now,
Mhm.
I don't want anybody listening to this, thank you, to think that when I ask those questions, I'm trying to stop the conversation because I don't like them. I also use those ways when I do, because you know what? When I'm having a good conversation with someone and there's a lot of other people around, maybe I should move around a little bit more. So it doesn't mean that you're stopping it because you're not enjoying it or that you don't want to follow up. It simply means, hey, let's keep networking. And I hope that a lot of people would do that. A third way, so first way was business cards, second way was LinkedIn. Third way is, who could I introduce you to here? So if it's a network that you know and you know some of the people in the room, what kinds of people would you like to meet? Now, often people can't answer that question. They just say anyone. Well, good, because then I can introduce you to anyone and I can just take them to anybody in the room and introduce them and say, I hope that you enjoy each other as much as we just enjoyed that conversation. And then you move away. So physical moving is important, and sending those signals. Those are the three ways that I would do it. And I don't think they make people feel uncomfortable.
Mhm. Mhm. You're much more polite than I am. I've used coffee when I need a glass of water. I've used I need to go to the ladies. I've used things like that that are kind of like, oh dear, I need a drink of water. Excuse me for a moment, please.
It
Yeah.
it does take practice though. I mean, like anything, it's a skill to be able to do that without using something that's not real. Now, of course, going to the bathroom and having a coughing fit are real sometimes. So
Hey, I've had 3 kids. Always have to go to the toilet, but that's probably not a conversation for our podcast.
probably not.
So, I guess going to the networking event, whether it's online or offline, to me as a marketer, that's probably step 1. When we leave the event the next day, the next week, whatever, what should we be doing then? We've collected some cards or we've made some connections on LinkedIn. What's next to be a good strategic networker?
All right. So strategically, I want to just emphasize that when I go to any networking event, whether it is a room of 500 people or a room of 5, it's about quality, not quantity. I don't want to follow up with everybody. I
Okay.
don't I don't need to follow up with everybody, but there are probably 1 or 2 people that I definitely should follow up with. So the first thing is focus. So and this actually starts from before you even walk into the networking meeting. So let's say you're driving up and you pull in, or you're in the waiting room on a Zoom call and you're just thinking to yourself, who am I about to meet with? Why am I here? Who do I want to connect with? So you're starting the conversation with yourself about strategy.
Mhm.
Then you do the event, and then afterwards, what you want to do is you want to follow up with the people who matter to you the most. It might be that you matter to them the most, by the way, because I find that in networking and making connections, sometimes it's if I can help them out, then they'll be able to help me out. So if I have a follow-up, if I've made a promise, those are the ones that you are going to follow up with first. So if you said, you know what, I just listened to a podcast about exactly that, I'll send you a link to it. That's a commitment, and you can get incredible credibility by following up on that right away. So make sure you're taking some notes as you leave of the things that you said that you would do. Meet your commitments. So that's first and foremost. If you've promised to do something, write it down and then go back to your office and have a checklist and say, I did that, I did that, I did that. Don't overpromise.
And under deliver. That's the worst
Right.
thing you can do.
Honestly, though, if you're flirting around the room and you make commitments to all of them, you will drop the ball and you will lose credibility with the people you dropped the ball with. So do be focused in what you're saying and don't overcommit yourself. So the first people to follow up are the people that you've made commitments to. The second people to follow up with are the people who you can help or they can help you. And you simply say that. I am old-fashioned. I'm 54. Maybe it's crazy, but I kind of like the phone. I know that people do answer it. I've experienced
Crazy lady. Goodness me, the phone.
I've experienced people actually picking it up and saying hello. It's crazy.
Out
I
of this
know.
town.
I know. Here's a trick that I use. I text them with my V card so that they have my contact details. And I might even do that while I'm at the networking event with them so that they know that it's me calling.
So what's a
And
V card?
I don't know if it's an Apple thing or not, but it's sharing my contact details. So when I go into my contacts on my iPhone, I go all the way up to the top and it's got my card. And I share my contact details with them right there. Bonus points. I now have their phone number because I've texted it to them. So if it's someone you really want to follow up with, don't just LinkedIn request with them. Do it another way. So follow up with those people. Another trick for the uninitiated is using your LinkedIn for sure, but don't just leave it. A lot of times when you're at a physical event, you can share information on your LinkedIn using QR codes or just finding each other on the system. And you can connect while you're there, but it doesn't ask you if you want to add a note when you're on your phone. It only asks you if you want to add a note when you're on the computer. So what I suggest is that you nearly instantly write to them and say, it was great to meet you at this event. It was great to meet you at She's the Boss. It was great to meet you at the BNI meeting. It was great to meet you at the Chamber of Commerce meeting. It was great to meet you online. I connect with people online. And that way you have in your feed and in that message, you remember where you met them. So powerful.
Right.
So powerful. Yeah. And that is a follow-up already. You've done a follow-up. So revisit your messages every week or so and just kind of go down through them and say, okay, well, I messaged them once. I really would like to create a relationship with this person. I should message them or call them or talk to them or relate to them again. So yes, you're wasting your time networking if you go and then you don't do anything with it completely. And that's why I titled my book, Stop Wasting Your Time Networking. So it's don't waste, do something with it. Did I answer the question or did I go off on a tangent?
Yes, you did. You did absolutely answer the question. A sidebar question, I guess, that just popped into my head. Business cards. Do people still have business cards? Like in the networking circles that you mix in? I still have business cards. I still find the value in business cards, but am I old fashioned?
Many people don't, and they're even starting to use digital business cards. So they have one that they just tap, and you get all their contact details spammed into your phone. could be on another podcast about unsolicited emails. Do not add people to your database because you got their business card from them at a networking event. I find that the height of rudeness. Ask them, would they like to be added to it? And that's another follow-up. It's a great follow-up. Hey, listen, we met last night. I've got a network, a podcast or a blog or a thing. I'd love for you to subscribe to it. Do you mind if I send you a link? Or would you like me to add you to the database? That is hugely powerful. So just wanted to share that with you. But going back to what I was saying, I forgot what I was saying.
Business cards, are they still a thing?
I think they are still a thing, and I think they are still, it's still valuable to use them, even if you're stopping the conversation, like I said before, to ask them if they have one. And if not, it's a great opportunity for you to get their phone number right then and there. And take control. This is something that you learn from sales. You should have the next action item. Leave with an action item. So if you ask them, oh, well, let me give you my contact details, and you say, I'll send you my V card or my contact. What's your number? And now you've got their number. So you are able to continue the conversation later. And of course, this is after you've developed some rapport with them.
Yes,
so you're
hopefully.
not just walking up to people like crazily, but you've had a 1 to 2 to 3 to 20-minute conversation with them. And there's nothing wrong with having a 20-minute conversation with someone if you're doing it together. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. This has been such a great conversation. You've given so much gold and so many things for people to be thinking about around networking and following up after you've been to networking events. But I guess, some of my audience is from rural and regional areas, some are from city areas like yourself. But where should people be networking? If someone's listening and they're like, well, I don't do really any networking, where do they find their people? Where do they find networking, or what advice can you give around where they should be networking?
All right. Well, it depends on your business, and your target market, where you want to be networking. So that's a very big question, but I can give you general things.
Right.
So first of all, do consider online. Online is networking. It is. So you can participate in online functions, webinars, or networking events, or different experiences, courses that you might take. You're going to be networking in those. And there are online options for all kinds of different networking operations. So if you're isolated, you aren't. It's 2023. We have access to more. So don't feel isolated. Instead, do a little bit of internet research and type in online networking opportunities and just see. They don't, again, it depends on your target market and what you sell, but they don't need to be local. They could be anywhere. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. It might be good to practice online with people who aren't where you're selling. Just go somewhere.
Too true. Yes.
Practice and just get comfortable saying who you are, who you help, and how you help them. That would be really good. So online is possible. So think about it this way: in a matrix, there's online and in-person for all of the different categories that I'm about to give you. So there's lots of different categories. And let's start with the fun ones. Community things that you like to do. Are you involved with a community group that's a fundraising? Do you do a morning tea, for example, for Cancer Council? Do you put together things, or do you attend them? I'm not ashamed to admit this because I'm actually quite proud of what I was able to accomplish, but I was in a multi-level marketing company for 15 years and worked as a consultant in that company, and parties that people would go to, those are community events, and you're meeting people that you are friends with the host, but you might not know them. And so there's a lot of open networking opportunities right there, filled in a room, maybe mostly with women, because it tends to be mostly women, but wow, what a great opportunity to meet people and to practice strategically networking. Really great. Other opportunities might be mums groups or things like that. So this is a community, right?
Mhm.
Then there are not-for-profit organizations and things that you might be associated with. And these might be things like your Toastmasters groups
Mhm.
or your chambers of commerce that you might go to. Different things that you can get involved with to improve your skill sets and work through things. So there's those. There's your industry. Your industry associations are really ripe with all of those competitors we talked about before that could actually be collaborators, and
Mhm.
you're involved with them anyway. And what you can do with them is you can actually learn best practices. You can ask them how they handle things. You can find out more about where they serve and who they serve. And you can talk about price points with each other. There's so much networking that you can do with them once you get some knowledge about who they are,
Mhm.
what they do. And so industry events like, for example, the insurance brokers have a conference every year, usually in the Gold Coast, kind of fun. Go, might as well. Or people in the film industry will have an association meeting, or people who are in retail. There's retail and franchising. There's franchise associations. So all of these different associations are great places to go to practice your networking skills. I keep saying practice because I believe it's kind of like yoga. You're always practicing and you're
Yeah.
always getting at it.
Mhm.
And then there's actual groups that are associated with networking, women's business networking groups, or BNI chapters, or BX, or there's one called Cub, I think, and that there's just lots of different networking organizations that you could go in and consider and be part of. And you don't necessarily need to join them. You simply can attend, see what you think. They
Yeah.
will want you to join them. That's part of their purview. They want to grow their group. You're practicing. So,
Yeah.
and you don't know if their group's going to be right for you. And if it is, it'll draw you in. And that's
Mhm.
kind of what networking is about. When you meet someone, if what you say resonates, and if what they say is something you need, you'll be drawn in, won't you?
Mm.
Well,
Mhm.
it's the same thing when you're looking for a resource yourself. If what they say and do and the culture and the connections look good, you'll be drawn in, and maybe you'll become a member of Toastmasters or BNI or a, a, a community group or whatever. So all those
Mm.
are the four examples that I would give you.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
also
Brilliant.
there's social circles as well. And, I'm in a band, as I said earlier, so I'm in pubs and clubs, and I have a network there, and I can make connections there like you wouldn't believe, with people who I meet just in the audience, who we start to have a conversation. And if they say something and I think, wow, I know someone who can help them with that. That's me
Yeah.
network. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Oh, yes, they're great. And I suppose my advice would be, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, there's really no networking opportunities around me, then perhaps consider doing what I did and start one. Like, be the person who, that brings other people around who probably think like you and go, there's no networking opportunities. And you put it out there and see if you can attract people and sort of start one up and see where it leads. Yeah, because that was my issue. There was really no networking opportunities locally to me. So I decided that I would start one. So, yeah. And if you're listening and you think that's a great idea, get in contact. I'm sure Wendy or myself will be able to tell you some tips and tricks on how to make that work as well. Wendy, this has been so great. Thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that's super important that we should before we leave?
Well, I guess I've said that thou shalt not sell, and I should also share with you when you should,
Ah,
because
yes.
after all, we're looking for results through the relationships that we develop.
Mhm.
So when do you make that transition? When you hit that line? And my training is when they invite you in, is the answer. And so when you're explaining to someone who your target market is, how you serve them, and what issues you help them resolve. If they then say, wow, that sounds like me, then that is the door for you to make an offer. And it's not to start to sell instantly, but it's to create an action point. Would you like me to follow up with you about that? I'd love to give you more information. And when they say yes to that, that's your door, and you've got it. You can make the connection now, and you can realistically begin your sales process. Now, sales trainers may argue that my process is part of the sales process, and they're right. But I really deal specifically with before that happens. Once that happens, there are other skills that you need. And I have a lot of sales trainers that I support a lot in helping you close the deal once the deal's been presented to you. But I help you get to that point where they say, that sounds like me. And the people that you're asking for are always leading you towards those people. Yeah.
Yeah, great way to round out the conversation. Thank you so much. If someone would like to get in contact and learn a little bit more about your programs that you run, or just chat to you about how they can be better networkers, or talk about B&I chapters as to what that might look like, because not everyone perhaps would know what a B&I chapter is and, you know, what it can do for their business, but where's the best place to get in contact with you?
I think that the easiest one is strategicnetworking.com. And on that, you can hit the contact me button, and you can also easily find me on LinkedIn. You know, having 3 names is great, but sometimes people can't find me. So, but I'm Wendy Lloyd Curley, and you can find me on LinkedIn too. Either one of those would be great.
Beautiful. I will have those links in the show notes so people can go and check them out there as well. But thank you. I'm glad it took us a little while to get this strategically done, but it was well worth the wait. So thank you so much for giving me your time today.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you for all of your podcasts. I really enjoy listening to them, and I quote you occasionally in my training. So you're a blessing to the marketing world.
Oh, thank you. That's so beautiful. All right, we'll talk really soon. Thanks, Wendy.
Okay. Bye.
I really hope you enjoyed that podcast chat. All the links to find Wendy and connect with her on Facebook or LinkedIn or her website, of course, can be found at the show notes at socialmediamarketing.com.au/260, which, of course, are in numbers, not letters. Yeah, but the episode was great, wasn't it? I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. If you want to continue the chat, I'm pretty sure Wendy is a member of my Facebook group, Like-Minded Business Owners. So feel free to go in there and tag her with any questions. Of course, just reach out to her directly. But I would still love you to come and be a member of that Facebook group if you aren't already. That's it, episode 260. If you loved the episode and found it valuable, A, go and check out Wendy. B, leave me a rating and a review. Wherever you listen to this podcast, if that's particularly possible. If you're listening on my website, leave a comment. I would love for you to leave a comment on my website as well. But I will see you next week for episode 261. Thank you again to Thriday, the next-gen accounting platform that automatically reconciles your expenses, calculates your taxes, and chases up overdue invoices, for being the sponsor today. And don't forget to join the waitlist for my little black book on Black Friday. You will, of course, find that link in the show notes, but I'll say it again, but it's really hard, I know, to remember. bit.ly, so bit.ly/BF for Black Friday, waitlist, Jen with 2 N's. Anyway, come and find it. In the meantime, if we aren't on social, please come and find me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. LinkedIn's actually my favorite, and I need to hang out there a lot more than what I do. I don't like to let the other platforms know that I have a favorite, though. Anyway, maybe if it's your favorite, we'll hang out over there together. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.